this is an example on how you can work with event types and workflows in Splunk to jump from Splunk into SignalFx with your data. So we have some sample applications that is sending traces to SignalFx and logs to Splunk. And sometimes the logs contains the trace ID in the events, and we would like to use that to be able to swiftly move over to SignalFx. So if we start looking at our index, so as you can see here, we have some events coming from our application, and within the event you have a trace ID that is extracted as properties trace ID. So that trace ID is something that we can actually look for in SignalFx. In the APM part, just search for the trace ID and you can see the full trace. As you can see, the URL contains the trace ID. So let us go back to this. So this gives us all the events that have the traces, and this search can be then created an event type for. So let's create a new event type. So this is pipeline demo trace as a name, and any events that matches this search string will then have this event type. And I can also set multiple tags, so I can say that not only for our application, the traces and everything. And I can now use that to search for my data. Either I use the search for tags, or I use event type. So anything that is matching this type of data, we would like to have a workflow action here. So we have built our event type. So let's go into settings, fields, and workflow, and create a new workflow action. We will give it a name. That is unique for Splunk. We will give it also a label. That is what we see in the drop-down menu. And it's apply only to the following events, our pipeline demo. We will create a link, and we will use this link that we have here. But this part of the link is going to be dynamic. It's going to be based on the data that we have in the event. So if we replace it with a link that looks like this, $properties trace ID, which is coming from our data. So let us have a look how it looks like now after we have created both our event type and the workflow action. So now event action shows a drop-down menu, says show trace in SignalFx, because it identifies the data based on the event type, and it will go directly into that part of SignalFx and show the trace. And from here you can then look at the span performance, you can look at any type of business workflow and so on. So that is an example on how to do deep linking from Splunk to SignalFx based on your configuration. Thank you.